The City Council for the City of Rollingwood will come to order Wednesday, February 19th, 2025 at 7 o'clock p.m. and we will begin with roll call.
Brown,
Alec Robinson.
Kevin Glashey.
Gavin Massigal being a quorum present, we will begin. We are, as council sees, we're a little bit light today tonight at the dais, but we do have a quorum of 3, so we will proceed accordingly. With that, we'll move on to public comment on items not on tonight's agenda. Anyone signed up?
That's me, Andrew
All right.
Van Winkle.
Great, come on up, Andrew.
I'm going to give you guys just something to look at as I do this. I will be super brief today, by the way, and what you have in your hands will help me be brief. My name's Andrew Van Winkle. I live at 104 Christie Drive in Rollingwood. I have submitted, my wife and I have submitted a request for a water leak adjustment. We're asking, it's a $16,000 approximately in billed water. We're asking for full 100% relief of that, plus the repair, the cost to repair the line. So of course, what you have in front of you, the reason we're asking for full relief on this is that we contend that our line was damaged when the Rollingwoods contractors came in and installed the line. So what you have in front of you shows, if you look at the first picture, there's a little pink flag in there. Okay, so you can see our curb is cut, and they trenched up to that black box is our water meter. That little pink flag is where this leak was. My yard is to the left, so you should have a sheet that shows 104 Christie Drive pointing to the left. So there's a lot of details in the official form I've submitted, and you can read a bunch of that there. I don't know if this is your purview to do anything about it. Frankly, I don't know how to advocate for myself. This is a great deal of money, so that's why I'm here. I'm afraid of, I just don't know how to advocate for myself. So I felt like that's compelling. I didn't include the photographs when I submitted the water leak request. So I know you can't respond to me, but one way or another, I wanted to submit this so that it gets into, I don't know where, but somewhere into consideration for our request for relief on that. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, and you're correct. We can't engage with you since it's not on the agenda, but
Yeah.
it is on the radar, and our office is open, and we are looking into it. So
Yeah, okay, great.
thank you.
And thank you.
Okay, with that, any other testimony on items not on the agenda? Okay.
Oh, I forgot to say thank you for your service, I think. Maybe I said it again. It's a big toll you guys do, and I thank you for it.
Thank you, and thanks for being our neighbor. Okay, with that, we will move on to agenda item number 2. We're actually moving now to our public hearing section, council, on 5 items that council has seen before and is aware of these items. Tonight, these, just for those in the audience, these items are not posted for action this evening since we're a little light on our council participation, but this is an opportunity for us to have the public hearings on these 5 items. Happy to do that. Council, as a reminder to you, we'll do these public hearings this evening. I'll open each one and we'll conduct the public hearings. We won't take action this evening until we have a full council with us, but and so you'll have another bite at the apple on these items, but this is your opportunity to hear from the public and their participation in the process. So with that, we will, 1 second. I will open a public hearing at 7:04 p.m. on agenda items 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then I'll come back to, that was my question. I see Alec was very happy with how I did that parliamentary wise. So then I'll double back and open up agenda item number 2, public hearing and discussion on amendments to section 107-3 definitions and 107-75 yards generally, to provide that the front yard of a lot shall be the yard which abuts the addressed street, providing for the location of the primary entrances. Is there anyone wishing to give public testimony on agenda item number 2? Okay. With that, we will, and I will leave these open, so if someone gets inspired, but at the time we finish agenda item 6, you can still come back. But I'll now open agenda item number 3, public hearing and discussion on the addition of sections 107-5 residential lighting manual and 107-81 exterior lighting requirements to the city's code of ordinances. And is there anyone wishing to give public testimony on agenda item number 3? I'm not seeing anyone. I'm getting a head nod from the back, or head shake from the back. Anyone wishing to give a public comment on agenda item number 3? Hearing none, we will move on to agenda item number 4. Public hearing and discussion on the addition of section 107-81 fences to the city's code of ordinances to provide for a standard allowable fence height of 8 feet and for a special exception for fences exceeding 8 feet in height. Is there anyone wishing to give public testimony on agenda item number 4? Okay. Again, not seeing anyone wishing to give public comment on 4. Moving on to agenda item number 5. Public hearing and discussion on amendments to Chapter 107 of the City of Rolling Woods Code of Ordinances, Section 107-369 to Section 107-379 to residential landscape and tree canopy management. Is there anyone wishing to give public comment on agenda item number 5? Yes, there is someone wishing to give public comment on agenda item number 5.
Discussion phase, but Jay Van Bavel, 5012 Timberline. I just noticed in the proposed amendment, there's no discussion of spelling out the critical root zone protections, and I think it's an important part of the ordinance. I do have some wording, suggested wording for that I'd be glad to provide to the council. And yeah, that's all I had to say. Is like to see something spelled out specifically about protecting protected trees and heritage trees and their critical root zone, which is important for their survival.
Great, thank you. And please do provide that to council if you would.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
If Mr. Van Bavel would like to explain what this would do, I think that might be a help.
I think that would be, if you wouldn't mind, since it is public testimony and others may be listening to this testimony, I think that's an
Yes.
appropriate.
And especially if anyone picks up on it and anyone in the public picks up on it and wants to comment at the next.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Hearing.
I can just read, this pertains to section 107-371 G, where it defines what is meant by removal of a tree. And under item 3, which is line 139, I suggest the following wording be inserted. And it's construction or disturbance that shall occur within an area that constitutes more than 50% of the total critical root zone, which is defined above, and 1/2 the radial distance of the CRC for each tree being preserved, including protected trees and heritage trees. In other words, if you disturb more than 50% of the critical root zone, that's considered as removing that tree. The second sentence is, within the critical root zone, only flat work, decking, or similar construction may be approved if proposed or actual protection of critical root zone before construction, during construction, and following construction does not meet the requirements of this section, then the tree shall be considered removed and shall require mitigation in accordance with the terms of this ordinance. This wording was taken, I looked at Leander's ordinance for critical root zone, Austin, and Westlake, and this is one of the mildest forms of protection of critical root zone of those three municipalities. So just basically, this is to protect protected trees, which are 12 inches in diameter or more, or heritage trees, which would be 24 inches in diameter or more if this ordinance is approved, to protect them by not damaging what is thought to be critical roots for their survival. So,
And that would be only applicable to those protected trees, correct?
that's correct. Yeah.
So I have a question. So if a tree is on a property line between two houses, and all the setback area, the 10 and the 15 feet are critical root zone, each neighbor can disturb 50% of it, or?
That's my question too. Like, how would it affect the neighboring property?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at, is what happens if it's right on the property line and it's in the, right between houses, it could, the whole setback could be critical root zone. See what I
So
mean?
let's say the tree is directly on, 50% of the tree trunk is on one property, 50% is on the other. The critical root zone is a radius, it's a circle around the
Right.
trunk. So 50% of it would be on one property, 50% would be on the other property. And this says you can't remove more than 50%. Okay.
Maybe it should say more than 50% of the zone that is located on your property, of that part of the zone that's on your property. That might work. Because we don't want each property owner to take 50% of the critical root zone, because that would add up to 100%.
But each can take 25%.
Right, but each could take 25%. In other words, half of whatever's on their property,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. And that's a tweak we can make later, but I just
Yeah.
wanted to ask if it was something you had thought about or was.
I thought about it, but I didn't have a specific remedy for that
Okay,
situation.
I think
no.
I got a proposed remedy that we can get to, but that's probably what will end up suggesting we do, is say no more than 50% of the critical root zone that falls on your property. So that if you got half of the critical root zone, you can disturb 50% of what's on your property, which would be 25% of the critical root zone. Does that make sense? So you're always
Yes.
saving half the tree's critical root zone, regardless of whose property it's on.
That makes sense.
Okay. Hey, I appreciate all the effort and work you've put into this tree ordinance. It's really great.
Sure.
It's very well done and very thoughtful and much appreciated effort.
I appreciate that. Trees are one part of Rollingwood that made me move here.
Me too.
Okay, thank
And
you.
keep me here.
Yeah, thank you for that testimony. Anyone else wishing to give public testimony on agenda item number 5? With that, we'll move on to agenda item number 6, public hearing and discussion on amending chapter 107, section 107-76, minimum required depth and width of yards related to residential side yard projections. Is there anyone wishing to give public testimony on agenda item number 6? Step right up.
Catherine Horn, 5011 Timberline Drive, and side setbacks and our setback zones and everything are very important to me. Obviously, I had some issues recently, and I would like council to be very mindful of the fact that we do not have impervious coverage limits. So our setbacks on the side and in the back and in the front, that develops our buildable zone. So anytime you encroach in there, that increases sizes of homes. It increases, what goes on a lot. I have a big house going up next to me, and it's tented. It's very nice, but they did, use more of their lot because they were able to put some stuff in the side setback. And I just want you to be mindful that our setbacks are our protection from each neighbor on the side and in the back. And I think allowing anything extraneous to go in there, your AC units, your pool equipment, something underground, it's important to keep our setbacks and to protect our setbacks. So, if you have to have that, it goes in your buildable zone. We have large lots and all of that. So that's all I ask. I've asked this multiple times and sent photos and information, and I would ask city council to keep that. We have generous setbacks. We have generous lots. We don't need to go in them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Horn. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, Ms. Horn, there will be another ordinance coming forward in the next month or so that will address physical structures that might be placed within a setback, what can and cannot be placed within which setbacks. So this really deals with eaves and roofs and what can project from the building. So it's not the complete story on setbacks at this point. So just stay tuned.
Keep coming and speaking. 'Cause anything that
Yes.
goes in our setbacks goes towards
Right.
If you go 2 feet in with an eave or a roof, that's, 8 feet closer to my house. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any additional testimony, public testimony on agenda item number 6? Hearing none. Final call for any additional public testimony on agenda items 2 through 6. Hearing none. Council, would you like to make any closing comments? Yes, ma'am.
I have one comment for the title on this ordinance. I think the word side on line 4 should be stricken from the title to the ordinance because it does deal with all of the yards, not just the side yard.
And this is on 6.
This is on 6. In line 4, residential yard projections rather than side yard projections.
Okay. Are you good? Do you mind making a motion for that so that
Sure,
it goes
I
in the
will.
minutes so that we remember as we
Okay.
as
And I didn't know
I
if
don't
we
want
were
it
gonna
to
come back for council comments or do it now.
Yeah, and we would,
But
and
I
you'll
have-
have, you could actually do it at the next one, but I just want it in the minutes so that it's a reminder to us when we're sorting through this,
Okay.
so that we'll remember to bring it back correctly next month.
Okay. You-
I'll take a motion.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I would move that for agenda item number 6, the ordinance addressing residential side yard projections, that the title of that proposed ordinance in line 4 should be, the word side should be stricken because the impact of this ordinance is broader than just the side yard.
You have a motion by Ms. Brown. Is there a second?
Second.
You have a motion by Ms. Brown, second by Mr. Glasheen. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no. Being 3 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Thank you. Just a little reminder, or
Sure.
a reminder motion. Okay, any other additional comments? Okay, hearing none, we will close the public hearing on agenda items 2 through 6 at 7:18 p.m. and move on to additional agenda items. With that, we move on to agenda item number 7, the Mayor's State of the City Address. And with council's permission, as you know, this is my kind of annual address to council. It dawned on me after I put this onto the agenda for this month that it would maybe be nice for us to have our new city administrator here so that he can kind of get a glimpse of, although we've talked to him about some of that, I'd like to have him here at our side while I recap some of our successes over the last year and look forward to some of the future goals for next year. So with your permission, I'd like to move on without making this address to you. And also, I know that Phil and Sarah would love to be here for that address next month. So if you're good with it, council, I'll just delay that until next month.
Should we discuss this?
No
D-
objection.
Sounds like a fine
Deny
idea.
deny my right. I must speak. Okay.
Force you to speak.
Yes. With that, we move on to agenda item number 8. Public Works presentation regarding tree trimming and fire prevention initiative. And I would ask Izzy to come forward. Very proud of this report. He's been doing great work as always with his crew and an additional crew that he'll tell you about. And so, Izzy, if you'll tell us what we've been up to.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm here to provide a brief update on our ongoing efforts to improve public safety and fire prevention through tree trimming and brush clearance. As you've seen around the city, we've been doing some tree trimming, and we've completed that. With that being said, one of our key priorities has been ensuring that tree canopies are trimmed to a clearance of 16 feet. And this is critical for, one, maintaining safe access for emergency vehicles, especially for fire trucks. Also reducing risk posed by low-hanging branches during storms and high winds. Also enhancing overall the roadway safety for residents and public works operations. Also, we encourage the public to report any areas where additional trimming may be needed so we can address them promptly. Another initiative that we've started here is the fire prevention initiative through brush clearing. And we started this in, our commitment to fire safety. We recently completed a significant brush and chipping effort along the north side of the creek, which is covering both South Crest and Grove Court, and we've only done the north part of that. We haven't done the south part yet. With the help of a contractor and public works staff, we successfully removed over 200 cubic yards, which is kind of equivalent to close to 280 tons just in that area alone. There was a lot of dead brush, a lot of brush, dead trees, which we've actually cut down and discarded off. Some of it was chipped. Any limb that was, or tree that was over 12 inches, we couldn't chip that, so that was taken away as well. Some of the chippings we've actually used around the city, close to where AO has their yard, their temporary yard, as well as we've discarded some of that over to where the Delana lift station is back there. So that's another area where AO has been discarding some of their spoils, and that becomes a mud pile or a mud pit when it starts raining. So with those chip-ins, it's helped any of that mud being carted off into the roadway.
And then, go ahead. But it also included along the road to Zilker Park. Zilker Park.
Yes, over Arnold.
I know. That's why I said the road to Zilker
Arnold
Clubhouse.
Alonso, I'm sorry. The two first names gets me, The part that butted up along the residence, we've actually done that area cleaned off between Rollingwood Drive and Farley? No, Bettis.
Bettis. Good.
Yeah, that was the only, we had the contractors out there for a week, and we used them to our fullest. And they did a great job, as always.
Correct.
That is City of Austin.
Is there an opportunity to work with the city of Austin to try and get some of that clearance as well? Just because I think the fire artist is.
Yes, we have trouble getting the city of Austin to do much, but we'll.
They've done some clearing. They've done some clearing on their side.
Yeah, they have done a little bit. We looked at it, but
I've noticed that, but closer towards their clubhouse or that, the clubhouse, they've done some clearing up there. There's still a lot of work that can be done.
Yeah.
Also on the creek side, on the south part as well, which is something that I'll touch on that a little bit towards the end.
Izzy, if you would, and we can talk about it after the meeting or later, but if you could reach out to your counterpart, the city of Austin, and I can work with you to figure out exactly the right personnel to reach out to. I think the right approach to them would be, hey, here's what we've done, but we can't do yours, and so if you could, let's just appeal to them and see if they at least could put it on a future work plan for themselves.
Sure, put it on their radar.
Yeah.
And with this initiative, it's actually help reduce, by discarding away all that debris, it helps reduce any fuel loads that could contribute to wildfires, which is essential. There's disposable risk of that happening, and we're trying to mitigate that. It also improves defensible space in key areas near residential properties, and supports our broader fire mitigation strategy, which we're slowly working at. These initiatives demonstrate the city's proactive approach to fire prevention and community safety. We appreciate the council's continued support in these efforts, and we encourage residents to remain vigilant by maintaining their own properties and reporting concerns. And hopefully, would like to propose a next exception item for next fiscal year where we can add some more money so we can, you know, there's a lot more areas that we can clear up.
Yeah, and I would ask you, Izzy, obviously, as you're out and about, please continue to make a list of the areas that you would like to go into. And I know you prioritized the ones that you felt like were the most problematic, but if you would continue that list, because I will echo, Council, you will recall at our last budgeting season, we did put significant dollars into the budget for in our tree trimming line item, and in the work group we talked about that we would first prioritize those dollars to continue the tree trimming along the streets and rights of way, but you put significant dollars into it, and our goal was always, once we completed that work, we would just continue on to exactly what Izzy is talking about this evening, which is the fire prevention piece. So.
Yeah. Question. Would it help to get the fire district also calling City of Austin about
Yeah, that's actually a great idea.
Yeah.
Zilker Park?
We have a good, in fact, a better relationship there. So yeah,
Well, and I don't know if they have funds also, if they might have funds for clearing within their district.
and Travis County also is doing some things, and so we'll do our best to try to coordinate interagency wise and try to at least put it on there. And I think we now have a better leg to stand on than we have in the past because we were actually doing something. So pointing out that we have done something and we're not just asking others to do it, I think would be.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, I'm happy to answer any questions.
But we are
on
out of
that.
money, so if they say, "Oh yeah, go ahead and do it,"
We have a little bit just in case of an emergency.
yeah, we did save a
Well-
little bit, didn't we?
Yeah.
I've noticed what's been done, and thank you for
Oh, yeah.
getting it done.
And again, there might be one or two trees that are still out there that the residents said that they were going to get to, but right now, because we're in the middle, well, the start of oak wilt season, we can't touch
So
those
I
trees.
will make that point to council too, and I appreciate you bringing it up, Izzy. So obviously last year was the first year that we really made a concerted effort on this front, and as you know, council, the ordinance does call for specific height clearance requirements along the streets, above our streets. But I think we fine-tuned our process a little bit this last go around, and we are trying to give ample opportunity to any resident who is passionate about doing their own tree trimming. We're trying to give them plenty of opportunity to do that on their own, but also conveying to them that even if you do it on your own, you still have to meet the baseline standards that are in the ordinance. But we lengthened our notice process out to try to give ample time to let them know, hey, we're coming. We also fine-tuned how we went about communicating and letting them communicate with us that no, don't do mine. I want to do it, while still letting them know that's great, but then you have till such and such date, or we're coming back. And then, but we'll work with you, so if you can't get somebody scheduled, if you can't get somebody out to do it, then we'll work with you on that. And then Izzy fine-tuned his process too to make sure he circles back to those properties that are on the radar to make sure it happens. Because what we got into the time before is there were some folks who did their own tree trimming, but it didn't meet the ordinance. Well, our guys didn't know that when they went through, right? And so then they just trimmed because it wasn't trimmed enough. And so then there was some serious pushback on us of like, I've already done it. Well, you're messing up my trees. And so we're trying to fine tune that process to make sure that we don't just roll through there, that we kind of have a working list of like, okay, we got to have some additional communication with this homeowner. And if they want to take a second bite of the apple, that's fine. But like it has to be to the ordinance. So.
And also a reminder, when the whether it's our guys, whether it's public works or the contractors, their job is to go out there 14 feet. They do a good job at trying to trim back as much as they can, but they're not going to manicure the trees. It's just impossible. If it's around the city, around the parks, they will take their time, of course, but out on the streets, we got to use the contractors wisely, their time wisely, and we got to keep going.
So, anyway, But I think we've come up with a better, and we'll always continue to try to make it better. But we got fewer complaints this time, so I think we did a better job. So
Yeah, we're working on it.
thank you,
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, with that, we will move on to agenda item number 9, police chief presentation regarding vehicle theft and burglary. Hello, chief.
Hello, good evening. How are y'all today?
Great.
Good.
Chief, if you would indulge me, I know you've put together some documentation, and I'd like to have a dialogue with you, kind of on the record, on this topic for council, for the record, for anyone listening at home. And some of this documentation that you put together for me is from our police documentation, police reports, and so I'm happy to provide that offline to council, but it's not all public information, so I'm going to try to kind of redact as we go here. But if you would, Chief, what's in front of me is a report that I asked you to put together, which is what I would call a definitive list of all vehicle burglary or theft incidents in the last 12-month period. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's going to be theft of vehicles.
And burglaries.
Correct.
So I want to go line by line through exactly the historical document that we have put together, and then we'll have a little dialogue about that. But I want to, for the record, go through exactly what we have in terms of reported incidents in the last 12 months.
Okay.
So on 12/16, you had a burglary of a vehicle on Timberline. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
And what was stolen?
A gym bag was stolen.
And was the vehicle unlocked?
Yes, sir.
And did you investigate that?
Correct. Prints were attempted and video was put into evidence.
And then on 2/20, you had a theft of a vehicle. Is that correct? On Hatley?
That is correct.
And was the vehicle stolen?
Yes, sir.
And was it locked or unlocked?
The victim stated that the vehicle was locked with the keys inside, but we did show no signs of forced entry.
And was it recovered, the vehicle?
Yes, sir, it was.
And did you investigate it?
Correct.
And what was the outcome of that investigation?
The outcome is still active. Unfortunately, we currently do not have any suspects.
And then on 2/20, on that same day, you had a burglary of a vehicle. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Rollingwood Drive?
Yes, sir.
What was stolen?
A handgun.
And was there a sign of forced entry?
No, sir.
And what does that typically indicate to you?
Typically, it indicates that the vehicle was left unlocked.
And did you investigate it?
Yes, sir.
Was the gun recovered?
No, sir. The gun was placed into TCIC and CIC.
And I want you to tell me, well, we'll get to that at the end. On 2/20, there was a burglary of a vehicle. Is that correct? And this is 2/20 of 24.
Yes, sir.
And was anything taken?
Nothing was taken.
Was the vehicle unlocked?
Yes, sir.
And did you investigate it to the extent you could?
Yes, sir.
And what was the outcome of that?
That there were no leads on that one.
And then, let's see, roughly a month later, on 3/27 of 24, you had a burglary of a vehicle at Bee Cave Road. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Was anything taken?
Nothing was taken, but the window was broken.
Okay, so you had on that one. That is what you would consider evidence of a forced entry. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you did investigate that one.
Yes, sir.
And tell me about the investigation.
So the investigation shows that the victim did just leave Chase Bank, so we assume that it was possibly associated with a jugging incident. That's why they followed him to that location.
Several months ago, jugging was a new term for me. Tell us what jugging is.
Correct. Jugging is when individuals do follow you from the bank and rob you of any deposits.
Okay. On 3/30, you had a burglary of a vehicle that was reported on Inwood. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And what was stolen?
A garage remote,
And was the vehicle locked or unlocked?
unlocked.
Was the remote recovered?
Yes, sir.
And tell me about was it investigated?
So it is investigated. Unfortunately, we don't have suspect information, but we do have video.
And on 4-1, you had a burglary of a vehicle, is that correct?
That is correct.
On Rollingwood Drive?
Yes, sir.
And what was stolen?
2 headsets.
And was the vehicle unlocked?
Yes, sir.
And were there any suspects?
No suspects.
Okay. And no camera?
No cameras.
Okay. And then on 4-3, burglary of a vehicle on Nixon.
Correct. It was in our upper parking lot.
What was stolen?
A lunchbox.
And was there forced entry?
Yes, sir.
There was evidence of that with a broken window.
Correct.
And was that during the day?
That was during the day.
On 4-6, you had a burglary of a vehicle also on Nixon Drive, correct?
Yes, sir.
That's 3 days later, correct?
That is correct.
Also in the upper parking lot?
Yes, sir.
Was anything taken?
Nothing was taken.
A forced entry evidence again?
Yes, the window was broken. And so the victim did enter the vehicle prior to their arrival, so we were unable to gather prints. And the purse still remained in the center of the console.
Okay. On 4-27, you had a burglary of a vehicle, Rollingwood Drive. Was anything taken?
No, sir.
Was the vehicle unlocked?
Yes, sir.
On 5-1, you had a burglary of a vehicle on Bee Cave Road. Where was that?
That was at Chinatown.
At Chinatown. Was anything taken?
A backpack.
And was there forced entry?
Yes, sir.
And was it investigated to the best of your ability?
Yes, sir.
And on 9/25 of 24, you had a burglary of a vehicle on Rollingwood Drive at the dog park.
Yes, sir.
And what was stolen?
2 purses were stolen.
And was the vehicle unlocked?
Yes, sir.
Did you investigate it?
Yes, sir. There were no visible prints.
On 11/17, you had a theft of a vehicle. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And the vehicle was stolen. Was the vehicle unlocked?
Yes, sir.
And was the vehicle recovered?
Yes, sir.
And tell me about the investigation.
So the investigation showed that we did have video where we did have 4 suspects. Unfortunately, this case is still being investigated, but the vehicle was located within the city of Austin.
And in that vehicle theft, or the ones the few others that we'll talk about in a minute, was there any evidence that there was casing, like that gangs had cased the area or anything like that, or was there any evidence to that effect in the investigation?
No, sir. Nothing showing that the area was being cased.
Okay. And on 11/19 of 24, you had a burglary of a vehicle on Nixon.
Yes, sir.
And what was stolen?
Jacket.
And was there forced entry?
Yes, sir.
And did you investigate it?
Yes, sir.
On 11/20, you had a criminal mischief. Tell me what criminal mischief is.
Criminal mischief is basically when there's damage to property, but no signs of any other crime being committed. This one, the reason why I put it on this list was because it was found in the same location as the theft on Nixon, where the vehicle's windows appear to be, had been shot out by a BB gun. And so I'd put it on there just so we can associate to see maybe if that's possibly how they gained entry to the other vehicle. And on that one as well, no, this particular resident had cameras and the cameras did not activate. Therefore, we do feel like it was at a distance.
And in your law enforcement history, how long have you been a law enforcement officer?
20 years.
And in that history, do you often see gang members or people who are parts of organized crime? Do they typically carry larger guns and ammo, or do they usually carry BB guns?
They usually do not carry BB guns.
Oh, just checking. On 11/28, you had a burglary of a vehicle on Vale Street.
Yes, sir.
Tell me what was stolen.
Gym bag and sports equipment.
And was the vehicle unlocked?
Yes, sir.
Was the property recovered?
Yes, sir.
Did you investigate it?
Yes, sir.
Tell me about the investigation.
So we did have video of one male. It's also being investigated with a Westlake Hills incident as well, where they had a stolen vehicle that we found property within the city of Rollingwood. So it's kind of a combined case.
And on 12/17, you had a burglary of a vehicle on Rollingwood Drive,
Yes, sir.
also at the park.
Yes, sir.
What was stolen?
A purse.
Was there forced entry?
Yes, sir.
Did you investigate it?
Yes, sir.
On 12/19, you had theft of a vehicle. The vehicle was actually stolen,
Yes, sir.
and that was on Vale Street.
Yes, sir.
Was the vehicle unlocked?
Yes, sir.
Was the vehicle recovered?
Yes, sir.
Did you investigate it?
Yes, sir.
What was the result of that investigation?
So the results of that investigation, the juvenile suspect who was driving the vehicle was apprehended within the city of Austin by Travis County Sheriff's Office.
Was it juvenile?
Correct.
Was there any evidence that juvenile was part of a larger organized criminal network?
Not that we know of, no.
On 1/16, you had a burglary of a building, and that was at the Park Hills Baptist Church. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Was anything taken?
No, sir.
And explained the storage shed was removed?
The storage, they removed the door. It wasn't so much, we responded as a burglary. Nothing was stolen at the time, so it basically can be reclassified as a criminal mischief, but I just wanted it on there just to show that somebody had.
Got it.
We did respond for full transparency.
And then on 1/30/25, you had a burglary of a vehicle. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And what was stolen? That was on Westgate Circle.
Yes, sir.
What was stolen?
A gun.
Was there forced entry?
No signs of forced entry.
And remind me what no sign of forced entry in the investigative process
In the
tends
investigative
tends
process
to-
is if there's no signs of prying of the door or a broken window, we show no signs of forced entry,
And what does that typically indicate?
that the vehicle was unlocked.
And did you investigate that one?
Yes, sir.
And then on 1/31/25, there was also a theft of a vehicle. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That was on Hatley,
Yes, sir.
and that vehicle was stolen.
Yes, sir.
Was that vehicle unlocked?
The vehicle was unlocked and was left running with the keys inside.
And was it recovered?
Yes, sir.
And did you investigate it?
Yes, sir.
And tell me about the outcome of that investigation.
That one, the two juvenile suspects that were involved in a pursuit and were apprehended with a joint effort of DPS, Travis County, and APD.
So it was someone on foot, not necessarily someone driving in or casing the area or anything like that.
That is correct. We believe they were on foot.
Okay. So of those incidents that I just covered in the last 12-month period, by my math, that's 21 reported burglary or theft incidents in that time frame. Is that correct?
That is correct.
9 of those were in the past, were since last November, December, January, and then this month. So
That
this
is
is all
correct.
to date, correct?
That is up to date.
Okay. So that's 9 in that time period, one of which was the burglary of a building that could have been reclassified as criminal mischief, and then the other criminal mischief that's noted here.
That is correct.
So that's 7 vehicular incidents, either theft or burglary, in that time frame. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
And so that would indicate roughly an average on a quarterly basis. That's roughly 7 per quarter. And so there's been since November, December, and January and February, there hasn't been a spike
No, sir.
in the average of the last year.
No,
Not
sir.
that that's good. Not that we ever.
Correct. And that's
you know,
one thing I do want to acknowledge is that, our ultimate goal is for us to have no crime.
Right.
But there does not show to be a significant spike.
And of those 21 incidents, 5 instances there was nothing taken. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And 4 of the 21 instances, the vehicle was actually stolen. And in all 4 of those instances, those vehicles were recovered.
Correct.
Correct. And how many of those 4 instances that the vehicle was actually stolen? How many of them again had the keys left in them?
All 4.
And in the remaining instances of those 21, so in 12 instances, the vehicle, in the remaining, not the stolen ones, but in the burglaries, in all 12 of those instances, or 12 of those instances, the vehicles were also unlocked. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Or no sign of forced entry?
That is correct.
And the Rollingwood Police Department, to be clear, investigated every single one of those.
That is correct.
is it your understanding, I know you don't do a lot with the Austin Police Department, but do you, anecdotally, do you believe that the Austin Police Department has an opportunity to investigate every single vehicular theft or burglary?
No, sir.
And were any of those 21 crimes over the last 12 months, were any of those committed at night when there was no officer on duty?
Negative.
And so you're telling me that we have always had an officer on duty every night?
100%. We will never go unmanned.
Had you had a chance to look at the 2023 statistics and compare those to 2024?
I have. So in 2023, and this includes all thefts, whether it could even include a wallet theft, let's just say at Trader Joe's, we had 30 in the year of 2023, and then in 2024, we had 25.
So actually a slight decrease
That is correct,
in the rate.
in 2024.
Had you? I'd ask you to kind of also look at the overall data set for the entire zip code. Did you have a chance to look at the entire data set for all of 78746?
I did.
And tell me about that. Tell council and myself about that data.
So what I did is Travis County provided information of all the dispatch calls for, and I pulled all the data for 78746, anything that's basically in our surrounding area. And what it's showing, I kind of did it in a way where it was easier for me to kind of visually see and so the green is Rollingwood calls, the blue is the city of Westlake Hills, and like the salmon color is Travis County. So it shows basically that they move in like direction. So they're not just focusing 100% on us. And it shows where they hit an area, then they move, they hit another area, and then they move type thing. So, I mean, you can clearly see like a pattern. And that's what we're kind of looking at.
It's a very thorough report. I appreciate it very much, Chief. A couple of other sort of follow-up items. As you recall, and as council recalls, we spent a lot of time during our budgeting process talking about, and we have very specific long conversations about the police department budget, do we not?
Yes, sir.
And a big, if not the major, actually, I know for a fact, the major portion of that budget for our police department is around salaries and personnel and labor costs. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And did this council do a great job last budgeting cycle of giving all of the city additional resources?
Yes, sir.
And did you and I and then City Administrator Wayman work and take a significant portion of those funds and continue our step increases and our pay increases?
That is correct. So we applied discretionary funds to increase the entire STEP program.
And do you feel like that is a competitive salary level at this point as best as possible?
Yes, sir.
Especially for a small police department?
Correct.
And we have had long discussions in that budget process too about the need for additional recruitment, have we not?
Yes, sir.
And I know that recruitment has been difficult for you, as it has been. Do you feel like that is that specific to the city of Rollingwood and our police department, or are you hearing that from your counterparts in other jurisdictions?
No, sir. Unfortunately, it's nationwide.
And what are you doing to recruit?
So obviously, I mean, we do go after, we are looking for certified officers, but we also are going we actually are going in front of some cadets next week at the academies to also attempt to recruit from there.
And did this council put additional dollars in this budget to give you some additional resources to actually pay for those cadets?
That is correct.
And when you are successful in your recruiting process and you're able to potentially onboard a new officer, tell me about that vetting process, and is that a guaranteed hire?
So every applicant goes through a background where we do speak to the agencies that they currently worked at, look at their full criminal history and different things like that. Unfortunately, we have had recent applicants fall out of that vetting process. And that's something that we as an organization have talked also internally about, that is not something that we want to basically become laxed on, by putting somebody that we don't feel, needs to be on the streets here in the city of Rollingwood.
And are you doing anything else, again, since it is difficult and it is a nationwide problem and everyone's having problems recruiting, and I think it's probably the fact that the city of Austin has canceled their last two cadet classes certainly doesn't add to the volume of available officers out there to go try to recruit from, right?
Correct.
And so are you looking at other innovative ideas to try to, if we wanted to maybe beef up overnight patrols and that sort of thing? Have you given that any thought? Or
I have.
Is this a new concept to you?
No, sir. I actually am meeting with Precinct 2 and Precinct 3 Constable's Office who, to see what possibly they could offer us to supplement any type of patrols if that's something that we want to go forward in.
So you've actually given that some thought.
Yes, sir.
And do you think that would be a potential opportunity for us to maybe work with some of those type of entities, law enforcement entities, to maybe do something?
Yes, sir. So what I'm doing is I'm putting together if that's something that the city would like to move into, on what the costs would be associated with that.
And in lieu of that, would you prefer us maybe just hire private security to come help you?
No, sir.
Why not?
So you have to remember, is we want somebody who has jurisdiction inside the city of Rollingwood who can handle law enforcement activities. A private security officer would have to call a law enforcement officer to handle law enforcement business. So therefore, they basically would just kind of be a call center for us.
And maybe the same vetting process that you give a great deal of thought and attention to in your hiring process of who's driving around our neighborhood at night, looking in all of our garages and looking over our belongings while we may be on vacation. The thought that you give to that type of person, that type of vetting might not would happen if you just hire some other private entity to come in and do that. Is that correct?
That is correct. And one thing about the precincts or constable's office as well as the sheriff's office, they actually are governed by TCOL like the rest of us.
Thank you for the report. Council, ask any questions you want. And I hope that all the WhatsApp cowboys at home are listening, but I haven't seen any of them. I haven't seen anyone tune in, although I did invite them. So,
And if I may, and Chief, I appreciate you spending some time with me talking about these issues too, because I wanted to respond to the "What's Up, Cowboys" in my newsletter, and I tried to address it, although I don't think I addressed it as clearly and as eloquently as the mayor has. But I, tried to pass some of that information on, and a couple of points. You mentioned the constables, and my recollection from our conversation was that they basically charge about $100 an hour.
Right, their going rate is approximately $80, and you have to pay for the car usually
Okay,
as well.
so that just doesn't
About
seem like a
$100.
very good economical solution compared to hiring officers. And one other kind of impression I had after, studying the issue and talking to you about it was that we might want to consider offering a higher pay differential for overnight shifts, like Hutto, I think you mentioned, has like maybe a 15% pay differential for overnight shifts, because I can understand why that would be a hard shift to fill, especially, if you're want to get somebody long-term here. So I just want to throw that out there, and that's more of an administration issue. And I want to just say also, after having been, on council for a couple of years now, and having worked with the mayor and the administration and gone through the budget process, I think that we have all worked hard on that, and the administration should be commended for their efforts on trying to address these issues. And so when I make a suggestion like adding maybe more for the overnight shift, it's just a suggestion, because I know you guys have dealt with this with the mayor and the city administrator and yourself on a more of a day-to-day basis and in more detail. But it's just an impression and a suggestion I wanted to throw out.
Yes, sir, and I do appreciate that. And like the mayor says, I do want to, like, I know it helps having your support when it comes to those salaries and in moving our pay scale the way we did. Hopefully is making, I mean, we do have applicants coming in. But I just want to reiterate that it's easy for us to fill positions, but it might not be who you want outside
Sure.
of your home.
And we appreciate that. And one other thing I wanted to mention was that, you know, there was a group started by some citizens in the past, which they call their Police Benevolent Association, which they formed to raise some money to support the department. And I think it was used for some maybe bulletproof vests at some point. But they do have about $60,000 right now, and they would be willing to, I've been told, willing to help with sign-on bonuses or whatever the administration and you decide could be useful in helping deal with the issue of trying to recruit and hire.
Okay, I know we're supposed to get together at the beginning of the year. I have spoken to the Benevolent Foundation. We're just trying to come up with a date on when we can sit down and have that discussion. I did not know what their budget was. I don't ask those type of questions.
And there are, and I don't remember all the nuances, so don't pin me down, but there are some legal considerations to using private funds in some instances, especially related to salaries and benefits and some of those sorts of things. So what we've done sometimes in the past is try to use those funds for specific expenditures that are, easier, for lack of a better term, and then allow those expenditures to free up other dollars to do the types of benefits and packages that you're talking about. And I'm, to be clear, I am very open to a dialogue around signing bonuses. I'm open to a dialogue around, if we need to do a pay differential at night, I'll take the chief's lead on that. But I'm open to all of those dialogues if it helps in the recruiting process. But it may or may not make that recruitment easier because there is a real shortage.
There is a real shortage. Like I was explaining to you, there actually is an agency in California who's offering a $75,000 hire-on bonus, and they're still not bringing people through the door. We're just having a law enforcement shortage. And the unfortunate part is we also have to look at the climate, the political climate here in Travis County.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you, Chief. And again, I don't want my dialogue with you or the discussion tonight to. I'm never pleased if we have any crime, and we will
Agreed.
always strive to not.
Agreed.
But the fact of the matter is, we do live in that zip code, and criminals, in all likelihood, will always, to some extent, target this zip code because it is a high net worth zip code, and that is just the way the world works, and we have to do our part to try to continue to be better and be staffed and be vigilant, and we will continue to do that. But I don't want anyone to think that we're not trying or that we're not working on it, or it's not, Chief wakes up thinking about it every day, and we're doing our best. So
Right,
and we'll
and
continue to do better.
And correct, and that's where, like, I want to, if either of you, I mean, just like with Kevin, if you have any issues, feel free to come in. We can sit and we can discuss it. I have no issues with dialogue.
And I'd love to live in a world that I can leave my vehicle unlocked, and I can leave my computer in it, and I can leave all of my expensive belonging. I'd love to live in that world. Unfortunately, I don't, and we won't ever be able to afford to station a police officer outside of every home all night, every night. So that's not ever going to be. And even though we're a small city, it is an impossibility to think that we're going to be able to enforce our way out of a crime element if we're not willing to take some basic steps ourselves to have that first line of defense. So, or leave the vehicle unlocked. Thank you, Chief. Any
Thank
other
you.
questions for Chief?
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
With that, we'll move off agenda item number 9 and move on to the consent agenda. And I'm happy to take a motion.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
You have a motion by Ms. Brown. Is there a second?
Second.
You have a motion by Ms. Brown, and a second by Mr. Robinson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Being 3 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Thank you, council. Moving on to the regular agenda, discussion, item number 12, discussion and possible action to reschedule the spring cleanup event. Sorry to bring, I would like to start by reminding you that no one had a real preference on this when we first brought it, and I will take the blame. I won't say anything about Michaela. I will take the blame that we may have told you that there was no preference either by by our tenants of the park, but there in fact was some scheduling issues, and I think you have a clear one-pager on what the request is for the evening.
This works out better for me because I picked the wrong one.
See, it was Councilman Robinson's fault. Yeah. Well, then I'll take a motion.
Yeah, I guess move approval of the spring cleanup event date change to March 15th through the 16th.
You have a motion by Mr. Robinson. Is there a second?
Second.
You have a motion by Mr. Robinson, a second by Ms. Brown. All those in favor say aye. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's spring break.
Well, it's
They're both
spring
in
break
spring
on
break.
both ends.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say you might have less
Yeah.
participating.
It was,
On either end.
yeah,
of the
on
spring break.
either end. So, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Being 3 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Thank you, council. Moving on to agenda item number 13.
Hey, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
Kind of going back to the spring cleanup, we did reach out to Austin Pets Alive, and so if there are any donation or, old furniture items or anything that is, eligible for donation, we will be bringing that to Austin Pets Alive for donation. So
Great.
just letting you
Let's
guys
be sure and post that, Michaela, on all of our websites.
They will be coming to the drop-off?
They'll be on, yes.
well, they don't have the staffing to come to the actual event, so whatever items we have,
Store it.
we'll bring it to them,
Okay.
and we'll drop it
Got
off there.
Got it. Okay, with that, moving on to agenda item number 13, discussion and possible action on a recommendation from the Park Commission regarding a proposal from the Rolling Wood Park tree planting project. Ask Michaela, would you come back up? Agenda item number 13 on the tree planting project. Council, just stay put. Just be ready to
All right.
go back and forth. I'm out of sorts since I don't have Ashley here to bat back and forth with.
I understand.
So it's me and you. Council, this is a agenda item that you'll recognize, and we do have an actual recommendation from the Park Commission. The bid here is included for you, and I believe the Park Commission's recommendation is to go with Mas Verde, who they've worked with before. And this is an item that you have budgeted for to be funded by the RCDC.
Of a question. Is this something that has to be set out for bid?
It is not, because it's under 50.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I've just heard different.
And on that note, it's under 50, so it doesn't have to go out for actual bid. We did have to seek other bids, but it's not an official RFQ process. So.
There was another bid before the Park Commission, and yeah, I think it was, you probably know, Don, I think it was 20,000 more than Mas
Yeah.
Verde.
There was, they sent out.
If you come up, Don, sorry.
Don Hudson, 4902 Rollingwood. They sent out 4 or 5 other bids, I think. They got one new bids, request for new bids. They got one back. It was over 50,000 and did not include irrigation. Mas Verde's bid, which initially was 48 or 49,000, has dropped down to 42,000. And we probably should have compared old to new on Mas Verde's, but I'm assuming that it had all the same things in it. He didn't identify any changes in it. So I made the motion that we go with Mas Verde. My understanding was that RCDC wanted more quotes to be requested, which they did, and only one company replied. And that's pretty much where the Park Commission left it.
Okay, thanks.
Can
Questions?
someone like just explain the project? I know I haven't been at the park meetings. I've been working.
It involves between Field 2, which is the softball field in the middle, between that and the parking, the strip of parking along there that Rollingwood Drive to the back of the park, a row of trees, more or less where those big boulders are.
Mm-hmm.
And it won't just be trees, it'll be other shrubs. It'll be essentially, that will be landscaped with irrigation. So that was one part of it. And the other part was across from the butterfly garden, across the trail from the butterfly garden is a triangle. And that also will be developed with trees and irrigation and shrubs. It would have been a lot nicer if we had a diagram of what kind of trees and where, and just sort of so we had a visual of it, but we don't really have that. There was something that was photoshopped that kind of showed what it might look like, but we didn't really have a diagram that showed what trees are going where. But that's more or less what Mas Verde's quotation covered, was trees and infill shrubs and irrigation.
And from the parking lot, like to get back into the fields, well, like I'm just kind of picturing, you're picking like those big boulders, right? Like, but the parking lot will still be there,
Yeah,
and then people will park there, and then
it would be, my understanding, to be right along the edge of the trail,
I got you.
and maybe would shade the trail.
Between the trail and the parking lot.
I see.
Yeah. I would definitely, before we went forward with this, we actually requested at the meeting, we said, well, let's get Mas Verde to provide us a diagram, a sketch even.
Mm-hmm.
And it was decided that was a little too much, given he'd met with us 2 or 3 times already. But I'll just request that as a.
Well, I just want to say that I really appreciate the effort of the Park Commission to develop this project, and the RCDC for agreeing to fund it. I think it's a great project, and I'm really glad to see y'all, get something done.
Thanks.
Yes, thanks for all of y'all's effort.
I just wanted to add one more thing.
Hop up, come on to the mic.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add one more thing. At the Park Commission meeting, Melissa Morrow shared that there is a tree subcommittee, and they would be walking with Mas Verde at a later time to determine where those tree locations will be, and that they're open to suggestions from City Council, and they'll also involve surrounding neighbors, just so everyone can be involved and have some say in it.
Great. Oh, she stole your, well, come on up and you can maybe make it a different way.
Okay, Alex Robinette, 2500 Hatley. Yeah, I just wanted to say that we love this project. We love the trees. I know we talked about this with CRCRC, but also the Rollingwood Women's Club is sort of working on some beautification ideas, and we would very much like to have a kind of a comprehensive idea of how these things might tie together long-term. Because I know we've talked about a lot of different things happening in the park and, you know, dog park and parking and various things like that. So I just want to make sure that the different constituents are coming together to talk about where these trees go, because it's a fairly permanent thing. So thank you for welcoming other input.
Great. Thank you, Alex. Okay, council, any other questions? Happy to take a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I would move that the council approve the recommendation from the Park Commission regarding the Rolling Wood Park tree planting project.
You have a motion by Ms. Brown. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Brown, a second by Mr. Robinson. Further discussion, council? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Being 3 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Thank you, council. Moving on to agenda item number 14, discussion and possible action on a joint recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and CRCRC regarding ordinance enforcement. And I do believe we have the chair of P&Z here, and I will recognize you to talk about it.
I wasn't really prepared to do this, sorry. Dave Bench,
and if I-
Warren Randolph,
if-
and I'll try to be quick.
Great.
We had initially, in CRC, considered the possibility of including in our questionnaire for CRCRC as to whether or not there should be more attention paid to enforcement of the ordinances. We decided against that. There was a lot of discussion around it. But ultimately, given what we had heard in the survey in terms of just open comments, that there was a lot of concern that there was not enough attention being paid to the enforcement of the ordinances that are on the books. In fact, that maybe some of the things that we were considering within CRCRC were really already done, but just plain not being enforced anyway. So we thought it best to at least call attention to it, this particular issue with council, and recommend that that enforcement be maximized to the extent that it can be, as far as paying fines and whatnot for ordinances. And I'm not sure there was any more to it. I think that was pretty much it.
Okay. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Council, happy to take a motion. Not real clear on what that action would be, but
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
I would recommend that we accept the recommendation of the CRCRC and P&Z, which is basically to
do better.
review, to consider whether or not additional resources need to be put into enforcement. I think some of the things set the penalties for ordinance violations to the maximum allowable. I think we've done that. I think, I don't know that this requires immediate further action, but I think we can accept the report, and I would move that we accept the report.
That is a good way to do it. And you have a motion by Ms. Brown to accept the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Is there a second?
Second.
You have a motion by Ms. Brown, a second by Mr. Robinson. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Being 3 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Thank you, council. With that, we'll move on to agenda item number 15, discussion and possible action based on a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission regarding the appropriation of funds for a third-party architectural firm to present graphical models of the two proposals in discussion before the Planning and Zoning Commission to address building height measurement, and tinting. Dave, do you want to talk to us about the recommendation from Planning and Zoning?
In a nutshell, what we're doing is we're asking for appropriation of $2,000 that would pay for Alter Studios to assess and compare two different methods of determining building height or establishing what maximum building height ought to be and what the measurement process ought to be for it. We have come a long way from CRCRC and through P&Z to talk about on a recommendation around what we call parallel plane. That recommendation had been challenged within P&Z, and a separate recommendation had been made to look at the city of Austin's method of measuring building height, which is kind of a segmenting method. It was kicked around within P&Z, and the decision was made, the motion was made to compare the two processes through an outside firm. And so we identified 5 properties that could be used for making this assessment. I've gone to Alter Studios and asked them whether or not they could take those properties and model them up in the 2 separate methods, and they agreed they could do it. In fact, they were showing me how they would do it, and but they put together. But it does take time to put together a graphical representation that shows the views in the way that you can make an assessment and make a determination as how different they are. So their assessment is it's got about 4 hours per property. We have 5 properties identified. We probably are only going to do 4 of them, but if we need to do an extra one, we'll do the 5th. And these are all properties within Rowanwood, and we have the permission from each of the property owners to use their base surveys as a starting point.
That was my main question. So.
Okay, yeah.
And they say $2,200 will cover that?
Well, actually, I think I put $200 extra in there as contingency. So they actually quoted us $2,000, and I asked for an additional 10% just in case. Here's the possibility. The part of this is that we're going to have Alter Studios come and address either City Council or P&Z, or P&Z and City Council in a joint meeting to say what they saw, how it worked out for them, and maybe even make some comments about how what we're recommending might be different from what, for instance, the City of Austin would do. And but there's the possibility that that'll open up questions that might need a second meeting, and I wanted to make sure we had some money in there so that we could bring them back if we needed to do it.
And so what we're being asked to do today is approve hiring or provide funding for $2,200 to pay Alter Studios to do this assessment. And because there's a number of different items here, like I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different items on the agenda here, attachments. I want to make sure I'm understanding the scope of this.
Okay.
In short summary, it's just what I said, $2,200 for Alter Studio to do this assessment. And that's something that you, as chair of various committees, members of various committees, you personally support this request and think it's helpful?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. The idea for doing the segmenting, or at least testing the segmenting approach that Austin uses, came from another member of P&Z, but it was clear to me that we were not going to be able to get this item through P&Z without doing this comparison. And if we can do it for a couple of $1,000s, I think it'll demonstrate not only to P&Z but to the public that we are headed down the right path. We're doing full due diligence on our recommendations, and we should all feel comfortable that whichever path we take, we should feel comfortable with.
Great.
Other questions? Thanks very much.
Thanks, Dave. And council, you'll recall, this is an issue we've talked about for some time. I've always been supportive of doing this if we could, A, identify some properties, and B, get a definitive dollar amount. So I'm good with it. If you do choose to make a motion to proceed with this, I would ask that you give myself or my designee the authority to execute on if we happen to have a contract or something. So, yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, I'm in favor of the project as well, with one caveat, and I think it's essential that Alter Studio present their results to the council and not just P&Z, because we know that the issue of the results of that work are gonna have some impact on what we do with respect to height and building. And so my recommendation is that we make that a part of the contract, that they include presentation to the council. And my thought about that is, we all know this issue is one of the most major issues that will come before us as a council. And I think it will be important, and you'll see me make this recommendation later, that we have our public hearing jointly on the proposed ordinance changes. We have a joint public hearing with P&Z and the council, so that we're all hearing the same comments at the same time. The community's hearing both groups debate those issues at the same time, and we're getting the input from the outside firm that's testing those results at the same time. It just makes sense to me. So I would like to ensure that if we approve the proposal by Alter Studio, that we insist that they make their presentation to the council. If they want to do a separate presentation to P&Z beforehand, fine. But I think we need to insist that they make their presentation to us as well.
That's perfectly acceptable. I would encourage you probably to put $300 extra in there, because if they're going to have to come to a meeting, they probably will charge for it. So I would do it then.
Their proposal includes one meeting. I just
I think
want
it's
to
a
make
good-
sure that if it's only one meeting, it's with us.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of increasing the budget a little bit, just so we can keep them sticking around to talk about
Yes.
it. And before we have a motion, or maybe it comes after a motion, I don't remember my parliamentary procedure as well tonight, but want to make sure there wasn't anyone else that wanted to comment on this. I'm looking at our other architects back here.
I'm happy to open it for
Yeah.
public discussion.
Alex Robinette, 2500 Hatley. The only thing that I would say is that I think Alter Studio was approached just to do the modeling, and they have not done the history. They don't know, they don't know the politics. And I just don't want to hold them to that. I mean, I don't think that would be fair to treat them as a typical consultant, because I don't think that's how they were approached, but maybe. I don't know.
What, to come and speak to city council?
No, speaking to city council, but they're only being asked to do this modeling. And I don't think they have the full breadth of all of the intricacies of how we got here, and I don't know that they should be expected to.
They'll get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is better. It's better, in my opinion.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think they have any.
It
Okay.
seems like it's a pretty limited scope to say compare basically what we've proposed on tenting or parallel plane and how to measure height compared to how Austin does it with that segmented approach, and just say, if you applied those two different models to these four examples, how do they differ? I think is the scope of what we're talking about, and that's really it.
Yeah.
And not saying, hey, and while you're here, how do you think we should solve our concerns about building height,
Right,
or,
right.
you know?
Yeah, that's,
What they may do, I'm sorry, and I've had a little bit of this. What they may do is actually say which method they preferred based on how hard it is to implement.
Okay,
Is that fair?
yeah. Okay.
I think that's an extremely generous price that they're
That's
asking,
where I
by the
am.
way.
I'm like,
That's,
okay,
Yeah,
let's.
I thought
so I don't want to take advantage of them, is
Right.
kind of
Yeah.
what I'm saying too much
Right.
without
Yeah.
compensation.
Yeah.
Lucky
We
to
want
have
a
I was on the same.
policy
I'm like,
review. We're on
I
a
don't know.
comparison of
Somebody's
various-
brother-in-law or what?
Yeah.
I was thinking maybe it's a lost leader to get some architectural business.
Maybe. Okay,
Do you know, I'm sorry,
come on up
may I say one more?
if you're on the mic.
Explain it.
To be fair, one of the partners in Alder Studio is my son-in-law.
Okay.
Okay,
that's fine.
And they, you know, he had almost offered to do this, you know, pro quo, and I said, no, don't do that. You know,
enough.
you
Well, I hope
ought to charge us money.
When we get done with him, I hope he's still your son-in-law.
So I
you're
do
not on the
believe,
hook.
I do believe we're getting a very good rate
He may
on
be
this.
on the hook.
Yeah. exactly.
We're getting the son-in-law rate. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Is there a motion, council?
Mr. Mayor, I would recommend that the council approve the proposal as presented by Alter Studio to do a assessment of 2 different models for proposed building heights, and with the stipulation that their scope of work include a presentation to the city council,
And a price not to exceed,
and a price not to exceed $2,500.
and the mayor's authority to execute said contract.
Including, and move that the mayor be authorized to execute the contract.
If needed. Okay, you have a motion by Ms. Brown. Is there a second?
Second.
You have a motion by Ms. Brown, a second by Mr. Robinson. Further discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Being 3 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Thank you, council. Moving on to agenda item number 16, our last agenda item. Discussion and possible action to set dates for public hearings before the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council regarding ordinance amending Chapter 107 of the City of Rollingwood Code of Ordinances related to residential building heights and height measurement. Ms. Brown?
I have asked staff to give possible dates that the council and the P&Z might jointly hear the proposed building height changes. Might hold a public hearing to consider the draft ordinance on building height recommendations coming out of the CRCRC. I've been advised that the earliest, if we approve this tonight, the earliest date that we could have that meeting would be March 19, which is the next city council meeting. There's a 20-day required notice period to, or 20-day mailed notice must be received by all residents in the city 20 days before that meeting. Plus, we've got to publish in the newspaper 16 days before that meeting. So the next, the March council meeting would be the earliest we could do that. I am recommending that the council, like I said just a few minutes ago, hold that meeting jointly with P&Z because of the interest in this topic, and I think it affords us a good opportunity to hear what the public has to say, what the P&Z has to say, and to get all of our questions answered, by any questions we have for our consultant answered at the same time. So I would recommend we do it jointly. So if we can do it by March 19, that would be great. If we need another month, perhaps Mr. Bench can advise whether P&Z might be able to, and Alter Studio might be able to do this work in time to put it on an agenda by March 19. But here's the way we have a draft ordinance. If we can gear up to get the Alter Studio work done by then, and any further comments that might come out of P&Z. P&Z will meet March 5th. That is their next meeting, so they'll have an opportunity to meet before that public hearing. But if we can do it by March 19, that would be my preference. If not, then we could put it on the April council meeting. That's April 16. So I just want us to start. You know, we've got these timelines, so I would really like to get a decision made tonight so our staff will know and so we don't lose another month because we've waited until next month and we can't do it until April. So I think those are the choices. Either do you want to do it, require that we do a joint public hearing with P&Z is one of the issues, and then secondly, when do we want to have that? If we do, when do we want to have that public meeting? If we do it separately, then we need to schedule 2 public hearings, one at P&Z and one before the council. So it gets more complicated if we do it individual public hearings.
I would support doing the joint hearing and doing it as soon as possible, and I assume that son-in-law could get his work done in 4 weeks before the joint public hearing.
The only thing we're lacking are all the digital files for the contours. We have 3 of them. We need at least 1 more, and then they can go, they're ready to go.
Okay,
We're just waiting for this appropriation, actually.
okay. Well, I'd like to go ahead and have the meeting sooner rather than later, and I'd like to have a joint hearing. My straw
preference-
poll.
Well, I mean, I'm outnumbered here anyway, but my preference is like to wait for the agenda item 15, the results of that, to have presentation and discussion on that to see if there's any adjustments we want to make, and then update the ordinance if we needed to, and then have the joint. But so my vote tonight will be or my preference tonight would be to like wait till next month to schedule this, because one, didn't we already say like a couple things? First of all, we changed a lot of rules like just over the past couple of years, like where we can like schedule these public hearings like without like a lot of notice. I mean, we could wait till next meeting.
This
and
is
do the
state
same
law
thing.
requirements because it's.
But you said we
zoning.
can schedule now for one on March 19th, right? February, we're in February. Yeah, it's a month.
4
So why
weeks.
can't we like do the same thing next month if we were gonna do the April?
Well, I
That's what
said
I'm-
that we could do that.
Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
That would be my,
Here's my thought. I don't think we're going to, I think there will be questions raised at the joint public hearing. I don't think that's the night we're gonna vote on an ordinance.
I agree.
And I don't think it would be, that's not my expectation at this point. I think but I do think it's important to have that meeting, and I think it's important to get the Alter Studio recommendation before us. And I think once we've accomplished that, then we can set the ordinance. P&Z will have to have a meeting to vote out a recommendation. That would be, now we're at their April meeting before we, the council, can vote on an ordinance, which would be our April meeting. So
They could
I don't
theoretically.
think what I'm trying to say is I don't think the fact that we have a joint public hearing in March would not mean we're voting out an ordinance that night. We are getting input, though.
It also doesn't mean that, I mean, P&Z, I agree, P&Z is probably not going to vote a recommendation at our next at this joint public hearing, and I agree with you that council's also not likely to vote on an ordinance at that meeting, but I do think it's an important step in the process, and I really liked our last joint meeting a lot because I feel like there was much better discussion and communication of everybody. I thought it was one of our best meetings, and I want to have it, and then I could see us having it, and P&Z's not ready to vote out, we're not ready to vote out, and then we have another joint meeting in April to encourage P&Z to make a call, thumbs up or thumbs down, and then we could either vote then, or we might wait another month to vote ourselves based on whatever P&Z does. But I do think having the joint meetings is good. I see there being probably more than one, and I like to have them because I think the communication, along with also the accountability back and forth between us and P&Z, and trust that gets built through communication, and it just keeps the thing moving forward. I just don't like this stuff where they're doing one thing and we're doing another thing, and we get confused about what each one is doing, and I just think having these joint meetings is going to be better.
Joint meeting's fine. I don't think that the 19th is a good date to do it though. I mean, probably half the P and Z team will be out. Like that's in the middle of spring break. You didn't even know if like P and Z there was any younger.
You will catch a lot of grief if you do it during the spring break week.
That is spring break week.
I can't, whatever those dates were for the park thing, that, and
It
full
is, it's
disclosure,
in the
y'all,
middle of it.
and you all carry on, I will be here if I can, but in all likelihood, Sarah will be presiding over that for council.
Because of
If
spring
it,
break.
yeah.
No, because
March
session for
19th.
me.
Oh,
I only-
Well,
that's
is
just
there,
gonna get worse.
But
and
it's,
worse.
yeah, there's no getting better, there's no
All right.
solving my problem for you all, so y'all
Not
just
until the
continue
third
on.
special session's
I'll
over.
do my best.
would there be interest in moving the council meeting to the following, the March 26th, so that we get it out of spring break?
Can we do that?
Well, and I'm not 100%, Alec, you may know spring break dates better than I do.
No, I just looked it up. And the only reason I remember that is because I know we changed the spring cleaning event, and I was like, wait, that's just a few days before the 19th. So, yeah, it falls right in the middle of spring break this year.
For Westlake,
Mm-hmm.
or Eanes, I should say. Okay, well, I agree that having it during spring break's a bad idea. I also like the idea of moving it, because I think a lot of people don't want to be here in spring break.
Right.
Well, so when,
People won't be
so,
here.
We don't.
So I have the
to
March-
a city council meeting. It can be a separate date from the city council meeting, right?
True.
or you could do it before.
It's a good idea to have it as a separate date than the city council, that we don't get bogged down with other agenda
Yeah.
items and we don't waste everybody's time that's interested from the public.
I think that's a terrific idea.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Way to go. I've got a sticker for you.
So continue to have our council meeting on the 19th, but look at the 26th as a joint public hearing.
I think
That would give
so.
our new administrator, city administrator, another week on the job
Yeah, that
too.
would give them a little bit more time. I'm happy to have staff explore that 26th date with P and Z and see if you have critical mass there for a joint. I don't know their schedule. I'll do it however y'all want to do it.
Let's set it subject to getting a quorum,
Yeah,
be my motion,
that would be my motion too.
joint motion.
Well, I have a feeling one of you is going to need to make the motion and the other one's going to need a second, because I think you're going to lose your third. So,
I think I'm going on along with this time.
okay, happy to take any motions and however you want to do it. Do you want? Well, go ahead. You got it.
Did you have, I'm happy to hear whatever you had to say, Mr. Mayor. but-
I think the motion, what I think you're about to do solves my question for. So go ahead.
Okay. I would move that the council set the date of March 26 for a joint public hearing with the council and P and Z regarding any ordinance amending Chapter 107 of the City of Rolling Wood Code of Ordinances related to residential building heights and height measurement, and to receive the report of Alter Studio with respect to the two models under consideration.
You have a motion, Counselor. Is there a second?
Second.
You have a motion by Ms. Brown, a second by Mr. Glasheen. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed it. All right, being three ayes and no nays, motion carries.
Thanks.
Council, first of all, thank you for indulging me in keeping tonight's agenda to a minimum. I am looking forward to having our new city administrator next month, and we'll be.
Can we make that public? Can we talk to people about him?
Sure, yeah.
Say he's coming?
Yes.
He's signed up on board?
Please
All
do.
students?
Yes, we,
All right.
I know it's just a quick closing comment, but yes, all of that, following our last meeting, as you well know, I was able to execute on that contract with our new city administrator. And I think he's excited. We're excited. I'm excited. I hope we all are. I think he's going to be a great addition, and he should start March 3rd. So
Great.
I need to check in with him, make sure it's all. Glad we had this discussion. I need to touch base and make sure it's all going well. I did send. He did call and ask me for Ashley's transition memo, so I got him all of that for a little light reading of 80 pages of transition. So he should hopefully be able to
reneged on the contract
catch
yet.
it. I think he was probably wanting it to have some thoughts on how to do his transition. So he had a good model to go off of. Anyway, with that, council, that's it for this evening. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Checking Alec. All right, three ayes, no nays. You are adjourned.